Hello everyone, it's Rabbi Shmuel Paul and I'm back, and this is going to be a very important video that I've referenced many times. I've talked a lot of times about Sinai, and we're going to get into Sinai and what it is and why it is the gold standard for truth that you should be really focusing on in your life. So I've been giving math and science a hard time lately, and we've learned together over the past few days that science has many, if not more, myths than religion does. So if we can't rely on science and math, what can we rely upon? So I always answer that we can rely upon Sinai. What is Sinai? Well, Sinai is Mount Sinai. It's a mountain in the Egyptian desert, and we're not exactly sure which mountain it is, although they have found a mountain that has burn marks on the top, which could indicate that it was struck by lightning, as the Bible claims. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that among the Jewish people, there is a very strong tradition, and history is mainly based on tradition, that our entire people was at an event in which the creator of the world revealed himself. And science is observation, and we are now talking about the observation of 3 million people. That the creator came, revealed himself, and gave us the 10 commandments. According to our tradition, there were 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60 that were there, and 3 million people if you include the women and the children. According to the tradition, this happened on the Sabbath, on the 6th day of Sivan, which is a day that is commemorated every year by the Jews with Torah learning. It's called Shavuos. Now, did this actually happen? So I said science is observation, so this is really a scientific claim. It's a historical claim. And 3 million people at one event is the largest event in history, one of the largest in history. That's 3 million people that all agreed that they saw, let's say 3 million people all agreed that they saw a particular crime. That's overwhelming evidence, and we would probably believe it. If we found an ancient African tribe that was 3 million strong, and they all believed that a certain virgin was sacrificed on a certain ledge in a certain area on a certain date, we'd probably believe it, because what reason would we have not to believe it? There's 3 million people that were there and we weren't there. Why wouldn't we believe it? And the thing to remember is that Jews normally don't agree on anything. We often joke that if there's 2 Jews, there's going to be 3 opinions. And Jews are known throughout history to have a lot of dissidence and a lot of internal disputes, as recorded in the Bible and as just known to Jews throughout the ages. And yet, this entire people, the Jewish people, and we can confirm this with the grandparents or great-grandparents of every single Jew that's alive today, all agreed that this happened. And in my wildest dreams, I cannot imagine a conspiracy to get 3 million people to not only believe that something happened, but to believe that they saw it happen. Because I can convince you that there's an elephant god, but I cannot convince you that you saw an elephant god. And yet, the entire Jewish people are saying that they saw God and basically accepted the 10 commandments that he gave them. God's voice boomed, and they all accepted it amid thunder and lightning. People have abandoned the Torah throughout history, but rarely have Jews argued that it was never actually given by God. They rebel against God and don't keep the Torah, but they don't usually say that it wasn't given by God. It's pretty much well accepted among the Jewish people throughout history that it was given by God. And that's why it is the gold standard for truth. No event in history has more evidence than Sinai. No event in history has more tradition behind it. And that's why we should indeed start all of our research into the truth from Sinai, because that's where it all happened. That's where the truth is revealed. That's where the Creator revealed himself. And if we want to understand things about this world, we should go to the Creator. And if we're going to the Creator, we need to find out if the Creator ever revealed himself, so we can find out what he has to say. And he did reveal himself, and he told us what he has to say when he gave us the 10 Commandments at Sinai. And then we have the Bible itself, and we believe that the Bible was written by Moses, a prophet, who communicated directly from God. He got it from God. And if we look at the Bible, we have every reason to believe that it did come from the creator of the universe. The Bible just says certain things and does certain things that could only be done by the creator. Here's a couple examples. In Parshas Shemini, the Torah lists only 4 animals that either chew their cud and don't have split hooves, or have split hooves and don't chew their cud. In other words, it lists only 4 animals that have only one of the kosher signs. Now, why would the Torah specify 4 animals when the Torah was given in one location, and many, many more animals could be found and have been found? But as it stands today, in 2022, with millions of new species found, there still are only these 4 animals that have only one of the kosher signs. That's a huge risk that the Torah took. If you're fabricating a book, you don't make claims like that, because if even one animal is found, then you have lost all of your credibility. Another thing that only the creator could say is for us to leave the land fallow and not farm it the entire 7th year in a 7-year cycle. God says he will give you enough crops from the 6th year through the 7th year, so you will not starve. Now, if you're fabricating a book, you do not make such promises, because you don't control the weather, you don't control what the crops will do. Only a creator could do that. There would be no reason for a fabricator to put themselves in such a difficult position and risk losing all their credibility so quickly and so easily. But as it stands now, in 2022, and that the generations which followed the Shemitah years, which have not been many, but they all have had a bumper crop in the 6th year, and they never starved. They were always okay. In the Messianic era, everybody's eventually going to be keeping these Shemitah laws, these laws about keeping the 7th year fallow, and everyone will be watching to see if there's a bumper crop in the 6th year. And the onus is on us. We have to prove that this is going to happen. We have to show that this is going to happen, or we lose all of our credibility. Nobody but God could promise this. Nobody but God would put themselves in this position of losing all of its credibility. And the other thing that's just interesting about the Bible, which gives it more credibility, is that it doesn't allow anybody to add or subtract from it. It cannot be changed. In fact, if a prophet comes along and wants to change something, they are liable for the death penalty. So this Torah, whoever wrote it, is absolutely obsessed with there not being any changes. But if you make a human constitution, it's the opposite. They're actually obsessed with making sure that changes can be made, because they don't know the future. Only someone who knows the future can say, don't ever change it. It will never change. And that's interesting because the word truth in Hebrew is emes, aleph, mem, saf, which is the first letter, the last letter, and the middle letter, because the truth is true from the beginning to the middle to the end. And this Torah that we have has been proven true from the beginning to the middle to the end. It's never been proven wrong. It's never lost its credibility. It's never said anything that's false. People talk about, there's not enough archaeological evidence that the Jews were actually in Egypt. There is archaeological evidence that the Jews were actually in Egypt. I can send you to organizations that do this kind of research, and nothing in the Bible has been proven false. And this Torah is obsessed with detail, the details of the tabernacle, the details of the sacrifices. If one letter is missing from the Torah, the entire thing is invalid. And we have found Torahs from the times of the Essenes at the turn of the century, and we have found the Dead Sea Scrolls that have the same number of letters that our Torah scrolls do now. So this Torah scroll does not change, and it's obsessive about accurately transmitting details of the sacrifices in the tabernacle, as I've mentioned. Just to show you how ridiculous it actually is to think that the revelation at Sinai did not come from God, and the Bible did not come from God. Let me just read you a paragraph by a rabbi named Tzvi Freeman from Chabad.org, which is a website that you should check out, chabad.org. He said, if this is one big conspiracy, then according to this conspiracy theory, the Jews are by far the stupidest and most gullible people in the world. They fell for a story that restricts their diet, their domination of the domination of their slaves, their weekly work habits, and their sex life beyond what any other nation would tolerate. They brought into a lose-lose situation for everybody all round. The king's power is restricted. The priestly class cannot own land, and the commoners cannot sell it. They abandon their fields and towns 3 times a year to the mercy of the hostile nations surrounding them. Let those fields lie fallow once in 7 years. Let their slaves go free once after 6 years. They don't charge interest and just trust year after year that everything will be okay. After all, God promises that when you're planning to leave your land fallow in the 7th year, he'll give you a bumper crop in the 6th. So tell me, what happens when one year that just doesn't work out? Do you leave that in the books you're writing? Furthermore, this theory has the Jewish people making up fables about their blunders in full detail. They declare that they descended from slaves. They tell nasty stories about their forefathers of the priestly class, the Levites, even though the Levites were supposed to have the written book. The original high priest gets his hand dirty in the biggest scandal of history. Who is this fable serving anyway? Why on earth would anyone want to make up such a story? And what sort of crazy people would want to preserve it? Jews are the witness nation. We saw it firsthand. And our job is to be a light unto the nations. That means to tell the world what we saw and to inspire everyone to follow the laws that God gave, because these laws are what will create law and order and peace and love for every single human being, and it will indeed usher in the Messianic era. And it is part of our tradition that on Mount Sinai repeated a code that he originally gave to Noah, and it's called the Noahide Code or the Noahide Laws. These are the only laws the non-Jews need to keep to have a portion in the world to come. So instead of studying about pi, which doesn't exist, or the speed of light, which doesn't exist, go to asknoah.org and learn about the laws that will make your life worth living, that will give your life meaning. And that will bring on the Messianic paradise. God bless.